Hello, everyone. This is Tiana from Gov Reports. Today's presentations, Kate will be presenting the sessions. Okay, Kate, just join in.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Oh, thank goodness. Hello, everybody. So today we're talking about scalable practice and building a business that really works for you. And, you know, I just wanted to be really clear that this webinar is for everybody who's running a bookkeeping, accounting or BAS agent's practice, regardless of what your personal views for your future or your personal goals and aspirations are. So a little bit about me and why you're even here in the first place, or why you'd listen to me ramble on. So I've been a BAS agent for about as long as BAS agents have existed. Probably a lot of us remember when we had to go and get a piece of paper to say that we could do what we were all very good at doing. I have run my own business for about 15 years. I put my business before my practice on most days, and I believe in people, then process, and then technology in terms of how to run the business that best suits me. I'm conscious of change. I'm really adamant that there is no such thing as the right technology, only the right technology for you or the best technology for you or your client. I live in Sydney. I work in Australia because of, cloud, and I do try to focus on my strengths rather than everything that's going wrong, because if I think we all focused on what was going wrong, we'd be quite miserable. And apparently I've repeated myself on whether or not I believe in the best technology. I don't. I just believe in the best technology for a particular outcome. So what makes scalable? It's an interesting word, scalable, and a lot of people associate this with your ability to grow a massive enterprise. And for me, I don't think it necessarily means a scalable business gets to be a really, really big business. For me, scalable is the ability to grow past the technician or being the technician, which means you can do more in your business or more with your business than just doing the do. And I think a lot of us start out in business, certainly not only in the accounting and bookkeeping profession, but a lot of people start in business because they're really excellent technicians and they'd like to take their abilities out to the market. So scalable can also mean the ability to increase a client base with little or no impact on operational costs. That could also mean reducing the amount of time you work with the same client base with little or no impact on your operational costs. To me, it means adaptability, flexibility and sustainability, which we all need in our businesses, particularly now that our business operational environment changes so quickly. I think it means looking to the mid and long-term outcomes and not looking at what's due right now, what's urgent this week, what do I have to do next. It's scalable, meaning looking forward. And of course, a lot of people talk about leverage and leverage resources when they're thinking about scalability. And so it begs the question, why? Why would we build something for scale or even think about scalability in our practices? So this little graph is just a really cool little infographic, and the green and pink lines in front of you are just revenue lines. So their revenue lines, one is scalable, that's the green one that goes all the way up, and one is non-scalable. So you can see from this little infographic that the non-scalable revenue does not increase in the same way, certainly not in the same ratios, but not as much as scalable revenue. And it's just a really good visual of what we mean by scalable and what we can achieve when we think about scalability in our practice. So I'd like to ask you, why are you here today? What is your vision? Why are you jumping on a webinar called Scalable Practice? Because it's actually different for everybody. I mean, we all have our own goals, dreams and visions for what we want from our lives, from our businesses and from our practice. So do have a think about it. A lot of people bang on about, your why and why you're in business. But I think if you do spend a little bit of time to think about what it is you want, then of course how you get what you want is actually, a little easier to handle. So, why did you start your practice? It's a great question. What are you trying to achieve? What is it that you really love to do? What is it that your business would look like if you had a magic wand and you could abracadabra everything that is into everything you want it to be? What's your contribution? And by contribution, I mean, what do you do that makes a difference? And it doesn't have to be, feeding the starving children in Ethiopia. It might be, what is it that makes a difference to your family? What is it that makes a difference to your community? What do you want to experience when you think about work, when you think about your business? And, I guess most importantly, what does success look like to you right now? Again, thinking of that magic wand and what could we do to make what we have now into what we'd ideally love. So it's a huge question, and we could probably chat about it for hours, but let's have a think about the how. And we've just simplified it for the purposes of this webinar. What is your one thing? If you're not familiar with the one thing principle, it's a fantastic podcast. I highly recommend it, by Jeff Woods. Look it up. A lot of focus on priorities and some really great advice for business owners. Once you've figured out the one thing that you want to change, what can be done about it? How will you do it? Keeping in mind that, a lot of people like to prescribe business advice, but you're running your business and it's all about you, your decisions. You actually know the right thing for you to do for your business. You just need to discover it and do it. And then, of course, plan and play, rinse and repeat. So the little infographic here is simply about reviewing where you're at now, identifying the problem, finding a solution, defining a process, and then rolling it out into practice. And that can be as simple or as complicated as you'd like to make it. But, we're here, we're bookkeepers and BAS agents in practice. Where do we look in our businesses with a view to creating scale in whatever way that is meaningful for us? Of course, we can start with clients and services. So by creating scalable clients or scalable services, what do we mean? So I take the view that we can be very, very good at a limited number of things. So when I think about my practice and making it scalable, I think of who are the clients that I want to work with and who am I really good at working with, and what are the services that best fit and best serve those people that I really want to work with. By narrowing that scope, becoming a specialist of a few things rather than a generalist of many things, I'm able to deliver what I hope is a high integrity service. That means I am considered more of an expert in what I do, which means, of course, I can demand higher prices and bigger value for the services that we're very expert at offering. So that's one way to look at scale. Another way to look at scale and looking at your business in relating how to build more scale is of course, technology and tools. And what does that mean? How do you do business? What are the tools that you use to run your practice? What tools are available to you? And what technology and tools will give you the best outcomes? Of course, I combine technology and tools in the one sentence now because primarily the tools we use are now technology. Of course, we have to consider the implementation of cloud computing over the last 5 to 10 years, which has dramatically changed how we practice. And there are just so many pieces of technology. There's, there is an app for that, as they say. So while it can be overwhelming, taking a step backwards and looking at the tools and technology that you use in your practice is a really fabulous way to leverage your time, build efficiencies, and deliver that scalability to the practice in whatever way is meaningful to you. And then the third thing on the list here, and one of the biggies, is of course team and resources. Yes, when we say scalable, we sort of automatically lean towards a vision of lots of people being very, very productive. But it doesn't need to be. You can consider your team of yourself and then look at how you best resource your team, even if, as I said, it's only yourself, and use the resources you have to deliver the best client services using the right technology and tools. And of course, technology and tools are actually only a way to complete process and practice. So you can't overlook building a process in your business, particularly if it's going to be more than just you, if you're not the only person who has to know how to get it done. And then the final thing on our list here is risk and controls. Risk and control is a term used in sort of the corporate space. In auditors, we'll use the term risk and control, and it really is pretty literal. It means exactly that. What are the risks that you have in your practice and in your business? And what are the controls or things that we're going to put in place to mitigate, reduce, and manage those risks? So I think if you're running a bookkeeping or accounting practice, these 5 places are a really good place to look or to start looking when you'd like to develop your business into something that is more scalable. Now, as I said, this is a huge topic. We could go on for hours, so I've picked 2 of those lists, and I'm going to pick tools and team, because I think if you address the tools and team/resources, remembering that your team can be just yourself, we can get a really big bang for our buck and drive a lot of impact with a very few changes. So why would we look at tools? The big, love word of the last 2 years has been automate. And of course, the advantages of automating as much as possible is to save time and remove processes. A process that is automated does not have to be performed by anybody, ergo saves time. It's not rocket surgery, this one. So the second reason to look at tools is leverage. It's making sure that we're doing things once. For example, having the right set of tools means we might enter a new client's details only one time to have it populated across all of the pieces of information that we need to run our business, including our marketing, our general ledger, our CRM or client list, our emails, this kind of thing. And it expands our capability. So with the right tools or pieces of technology, what we can do in the time we have available to us and the resources that we have is actually expanded. So we can, in short, get more done in less time. Now, that can mean you service more clients, or it can mean you service less clients for a higher price, and it can also mean you service the same clients at the same price in much less time. So either way, that word leverage is key when we're thinking about what tools we're looking at in our practice. And then risk management. Of course, we're all super conscious of privacy and security, particularly in the last 12 months. And so when we are looking at our tools, it's really important that we also consider what tools are going to make sure we're maintaining our security and privacy obligations, and how can we use the tools or technology in our business to reduce errors, to maintain a fabulous client experience. So an example of reducing an error would be to not have any keyed data entry, or to reduce the amount of keyed data entry. An example of that is typing a BAS into a portal, like using the ATO portal to prepare a BAS statement, typing the numbers in, versus using a software like GovReports where the BAS reports prepared in your general ledger, be it QBO, MyOb 0, are automatically transferred into the lodgement platform and lodged through to the ATO without the risk of a data entry error. And we've all made them. The most diligent person in the world can get a bit dyslexic on a rough day, and that of course means a revision or at least an advice to the client that a mistake's been made. So using tools to reduce errors and to reduce the risk of something going wrong because of data entry or data transfer is a really big part of what I look at when we review our tools and technology in our practice. So things to consider when you're looking at tools and technology in your practice. Cloud everything. I know it's been done to death, but if you manage to move your entire practice or the whole of practice into the cloud, you have more choices, you have more freedom. The old working on the beach from the Caribbean image pops into mind, where we're sitting on a deck chair and we've got a lovely cocktail with an umbrella and a laptop in front of us. And while that's a little bit extreme, well, you know, maybe it's extreme for some of us, having everything in the cloud just really does mean that if we need to go and visit a sick relative, we're not necessarily stepping away from our business in order to travel to the next state. The other thing to consider, of course, with cloud is that if you don't have to be in any particular location to operate your business, then your clients don't need to be in a particular location for you to serve them either. So by getting into the cloud and really making sure that you're 100% not required to be in a location, so no paperwork, no having to access a PO box, then you can deal with clients from anywhere in the world, really, but let's call it Australia, and you can work from anywhere in Australia, which is one of the things I've certainly enjoyed in my practice over the last 5 years, is being able to service interstate clients because we've just pushed everything into a cloud platform. Password management is another really quick win that can save you a lot of time and reduce a lot of risk. My practice uses LastPass as a password management platform. It's a piece of software that, you know, surprise, stores all our passwords. Now have a think about how many passwords you have in your business. At the last count, we had over 2,300 passwords that we manage. Now, we have a larger business and we operate on behalf of clients, so we have a lot of client-centric passwords, but still there's no way we could manage the business offering that we do without the ability to manage passwords. And that also reduces my risk as a practitioner, because sometimes even I, as the administrator, cannot visibly access the passwords that are shared with me from clients. And certainly none of my team are able to visibly or access or be able to copy and keep a password, because the software actually opens the web browser and logs in on behalf of the user without them having to have that password. So it's a great thing to consider if you have passwords written in a book, which I do know some people who do that, or if you've got, what's worse is passwords that are very easy to remember or predictable or easy to hack. So most of the passwords in our practice are all sort of 18 digits, and they go 1, 2, 8, 9, #2, 6, exclamation mark. There's certainly nothing that you could remember as a person to type in. So it makes it really efficient and really secure. So a great thing to consider if you wanted to start to build scale. Another thing that I find is really important to me, and I've had head-to-head conversations with some peers on this one, but I keep my work papers and my lodgement records absolutely separate from my general ledgers. Let me tell you why. We're all familiar with connected ledgers. Most of us would use either Xero, QBO, or MYOB Essentials or something similar. which is really fantastic. It's great software, and I think, I bless the day that we got cloud accounting. But, if you lose a relationship with a client, which does sometimes happen, or a client just shuts a business and then something happens later, you no longer have access to that general ledger for whatever reason it is, but a lodgement that you've made is called into question. But the lodgement papers were stored with software, you're a bit stuck. And I might be overly paranoid. I have been called paranoid in the past. But what I love about GovReports when we use it is that I have all our work papers and all our historical lodgement details available to me for all of time, even if I no longer have an authority to access that client portal on the ATO. So that's really important to me as a practitioner. It's certainly important as I have multiple people lodging in my practice, but something I would urge you to consider when you look at how you develop and store both your lodgements and your work papers. And I'm assuming here, of course, that nobody actually stores hard copies anymore, simply because, cloud. And if you consider the cost of paper in a business, and probably some of you have heard me bang on about this previously, I think paper should it just doesn't have a place in our business environment anymore. So yes, separate lodgement to lodgement software is very important. Okay, so specialised practice management software is another thing that you could consider as a really quick win to your business. I know when we're smaller businesses, we tend to run off maybe our email client to keep keep a list of our to-dos and our client contact details, and maybe we keep a calendar in, our G Suite or Outlook or some kind of email base. But as we want to create scale, particularly if what scale means to you is actually getting more people and servicing more clients, then the whole cobbled together with email and maybe a list of clients in Excel and some to-do lists, maybe you have a to-do list matrix in an Excel sheet or something similar, it starts to not cut it. As I said, I'm speaking from the moral ditches here, certainly not the moral high ground. I did that for a few years, and the minute that our practice actually onboarded a practice management software, in our case we use Rike because we have quite a large complex team, but the minute we got something that was actually designed to manage clients, manage tasks, manage projects and manage collaboration, it was like everybody knew what was going on. Nothing ever got missed. And we were able to grow a larger and larger team more quickly because we had a piece of software that is the backbone of what we do every day. Now, if you haven't checked out the GovReports Office Practice Manager, it is a fabulous little piece of practice management software, and I guess the advantage of the GovReports Office Practice Manager is that it also links to your lodgement software and keeps all of that separate from your general ledgers. So Ali Cochrane is doing a fabulous presentation tonight at 6 o'clock on the GovReports Office Practice Manager. That's, of course, a bonus included with your GovReports subscription. So if you think that actually a centralised practice management tool would be a really quick win for your business, make sure you stay online today and check out Ali's presentation at 6 o'clock, or at least register for it so you can grab a recording. I know 6 o'clock sometimes, we're out having dinner with our family, but I do recommend you hang around and listen to Ali on this one. Okay, so next in our list is some connected and collaborative applications. So when you consider your tech stack or your app stack, making sure that the technology and tools that you use are talking to each other. I think one of the paradigms of small practice and small business that we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years is the development of this app stack. We have a purpose-built applications for smaller parts of our overall business process. Making sure that those things talk to each other so that, for example, you enter a client into Practice Ignition is a good one, and that client's automatically put into Xero or QuickBooks, for example. that's what I talk about, connected and collaborative applications. So you're only entering that client's detail one time to have it pushed into all the bits and pieces of tools and technology that you use for your practice. And of course, you can also enhance your client experience by using the right tools. So we did a webinar yesterday using the GovReports digital signature application. And by providing our clients with a tool like a digital online signature, we're presenting ourselves as professional, up-to-date, and using modern practice standards, but the client gets a really fabulous experience. It's seamless, it's easy to use, and it means they're not having to do the whole, sign, print, scan routine that we asked people to do for a few years back then. So thinking about the tools, not only about how your practice experiences everyday work, but what tools can you bring in to complete your everyday work that also deliver a fabulous experience to your clients, improve your value, give your profile a bit of a boost, and just make you a business and a practice that people really enjoy to work with. And of course, I couldn't get to the end of this list without banging on about the security and privacy obligations yet again. Really important to consider when you're implementing tools and technology in your business, how are those tools and technologies stacking up to your obligations as a tax practitioner, your ethical obligations under the TPB, and common sense obligations in relation to how can you get into trouble with the technology you have? Are you making sure that you don't have really easy to hack passwords? Are you letting people know if you're storing data offshore and they need to be advised? So please, when you're putting technology together in your practice, make sure you do consider how that impacts your security and privacy obligations. I am done banging on about that, I promise. So the next thing that we can talk about after we've talked about tools is our team. And I've put a little cartoon up there because I don't know if any of you have taken people on and built a team before. And if it all went swimmingly for you the very first time you did it, well, goody for you. Because I tell you, it did not work well for me. I had to have several goes at building a team before I learned the skills that it takes to be able to do that effectively. If anyone would ever like to talk about what not to do, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I can talk for quite a long time of how not to get people on board in your business. But things to think about when you're thinking about scale, why would you look at your team, even if your team is just you? So the first thing obviously is capacity. How do you leverage your value, even if it's just you? How do you get more out of the time and team members that you have? How do you deliver better outcomes to your clients? By looking at how to improve your team. Leverage. So what is the highest and best use of your time? And what's the highest, best use of any of your team members' times? How can you expand your capability and capacity by looking at how you've brought together a team or how you've structured a team? Even if that team is just yourself, and I'm going to challenge you in that in a minute. And of course, key person risk. So if you bring in a gun, you have got a fabulous offsider and it's going swimmingly, you expand your capacity, and then life happens and that person just disappears with no notice. And we've all seen that happen to somebody, if not ourselves. How do you manage critical incidents? How do you look at business sustainability when you've got key person risk? So these are all really good reasons to look at your team in terms of scalability for your business. So please consider the segregation of relationships and duties. Now, I'm going to jump down to the last point on this slide, and talk to the top point. So we all know that a lot of people have trouble with money conversations, right? We'll have clients who have debtors outstanding because they just won't ring their clients and ask for money. And some of us are certainly guilty of that in the past, and I'm certainly sure that I'm not the only one. So what do I mean by segregation of relationships and segregation of duties? Keeping the client-customer relationship separate from the client-money relationship is a really good example. And even if you're only one person or you're advising clients who are sole traders, I have a secret weapon and her name is Sally. Now, Sally is the accounts lady and she's completely fictitious. She doesn't actually exist, but she does have an email address. She has an out-of-office responder on to let people know that maybe she's in on Wednesdays. And then on Wednesdays, Sally checks the account's email at whatever email address it is and responds to all the money questions and all the accounts questions and all the supplier questions. Now, in this particular example is actually not a real person, as I said. Maybe think of a sole trader, a plumber. He's employed Sally, the fictitious accounts lady. He's set up accounts at theplumbersbusiness.com. And on Wednesdays, he jumps into that email. He does all of his accounts conversations in one day. He speaks to clients about their outstanding accounts, but it's not him. And so he feels completely comfortable to chase up those accounts, negotiate with suppliers, and otherwise be the accounts lady. And he's also focused his time. So I'm talking about a team of one here, but we can also have this in a team of many. So when we're building a team or we're having a team of one, the idea that we have people that are specialised in a role is really useful because, A, they become specialists, and we've talked about specialists and generalisation previously, but they're also able to maintain a distance between, say, the client relationship conversation and then the money conversation, or the BAS agent relationship and the payroll team conversation, or the processing team conversation, which deals with bank recs and daily things, and then the sales team conversation, which deals with upsets that might happen at the client front. So in our practice, we have BAS agents who deal with clients and sales and have those high-level advisory type conversations, and of course that comes at a higher price tag than our processing team members who sit in the background and get those bank recs done and chase up those missing documents and do all of those administrative-esque tasks that of course take the same amount of time, if not more, but they're of a much lower value. That then builds part of our pricing policy and engagements. So by addressing and thinking about how we structure our team, again, even if our team is very small, we then can look at how our practice makes the most out of every minute of everybody's time. We certainly don't want to be in the position where somebody who can have really high-level advisory conversations and problem-solve, build solutions, is sitting there doing a bank rec, because what's the point of that? So please consider, when you're considering what you do, how you structure it and who you get to do it, who's right for that role and who is offering value in that space. When you're looking at a team, and I'm going to talk to people now who are sole traders and who might be working on their own and really happy to work on your own. Don't have, scalable to you might not mean a team of 20 or a team of 100. Let's say scalable to you means you just get done more in less time. So have a think about what you really don't need to do. For me, if I went back to being a sole trader, I would still not want to check through silly emails, and I probably wouldn't want to do those little admin tasks that we can't automate. And so what you might consider is something like a virtual assistant. And a virtual assistant is somebody who doesn't necessarily need to be offshore, but is often offshore, say in the Philippines, and who you teach to take over those little annoying fiddly, iddly, biddly tasks that you just don't want to do. So my assistant, Jamie, some of you guys might have spoken to her in the past. She checks all my emails, and we have a system worked out where she has knows what to do with emails. She puts them in a certain category. She stars and flags them in certain ways so that when I pop into my emails once a day at 3 o'clock, I know exactly what to look at first, what to look at next, and what really doesn't matter if I don't get to it till tomorrow. It's super efficient, and it takes, let's say it takes 20 minutes out of my day because, really don't get me started on how long you can get sucked into emails. So she certainly doesn't cost me as much as 20 minutes of my day in terms of the time she spends doing my emails. And there's a stack of other things that I get my virtual assistant to do. So one of those things might be just getting some documents filed in a certain way in my G Drive. And by documents, I do mean electronically. Okay, guys? She might also make sure that the documents in our document processing platform, so we use Squirrel Street so that we're not doing any data entry, she makes sure that there's nothing stuck in there that hasn't been automated. So it's a log in, have a look, check it, escalate it if there's a problem kind of task. It would take me the same amount of time as it takes her, but it's a nothing task, and I'm not getting paid for that. So there's another example of where just having a virtual assistant of some kind doing those little itty-bitty things, there are lots of them. If you add them up over a day or a week, you can actually give yourself back a stack load of time for very little outlaid costs. So do consider a virtual assistant. And now talking to you if you are considering offshoring your processes or building perhaps a bigger team with a mix of Australian and offshore, so Australian BAS agents with offshore processing support, you might consider hosted employment as an alternative to the really common BPO market. So hosted employment is sort of, as it sounds, it is a company offshore or even a company in Australia for that matter, hosting an employee. So that is somebody who works for you, is your direct report, but is just hosted by another employer. That's a really great alternative to having to go and interview and select an employer, an employee yourself, because the companies who specialise in hosted employment do that whole recruitment, the pre-recruitment work for you. So it means that you're presented with a list of fantastic candidates who are already pre-vetted for your requirements. And if you're not into the whole hosted employment thing, I'd also consider, again, that word cloud and hiring out of your immediate area. So I will never forget a conversation I had with a really lovely bookkeeper in Tassie, saying, I just can't get good stuff. I can't find a good BAS agent. Just can't get help. And I sort of remember we'd done a bit of coaching and said, well, you're a cloud business, right? You're a cloud accountant now. Yep. I said, so where are you looking for your staff? She said, well, here. I said, so but where are you looking? Like, are you trying to hire maybe in Perth? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you're a cloud business. You don't have to be in the same physical location as anybody that you work with. So why don't you hire a BAS agent from Perth? And I could just hear the penny dropping. And she didn't actually hire a BAS agent from Perth. She hired one from Melbourne, a bit closer to Tassie. But still, that worked out really, really well. And she found that person who worked really well with her because she just stopped looking in her backyard and started looking in the whole of Australia. So when you're building that team and you're considering getting someone to help you, just think a bit outside the square. I think we're so used to thinking that we need someone to sit in the office with us that we don't think about the alternatives to a localised team for whom, by the way, you have to provide an office, you have to provide a desk, you have to provide infrastructure and resources. And also when you're considering a scalable team, do consider offering that as a lifestyle choice. A lot of us on this call today, I'm sure, work from home. So there is no reason that you can't offer that to someone else as long as they're the right person for your practice. Now, I've rabbited on for quite a long time. It's a lot of information. Trust me, I could talk about this until all of the cows came home. Tiana's on the line, so if anybody has some questions that they would like to ask or would like to actually maybe take it offline, please do reach out to me, Kate at Gov Reports, and I'm really happy to talk to anybody about their practice and how they might consider scale. And of course, if you are an existing Gov Reports subscriber, you can have a half an hour conversation with me and our mentoring team free of charge. So Tiana, over to you.
Okay. Well, we don't have any questions specifically.
Okay. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay. Anyone has any questions?
Silence is the stern reply.
Okay, there's questions coming in. Yep. Lots to think about, Kate, and much appreciated from quite a few people. And we've got a question here. Hosted employment, from Therese Goggin, hosted employment, do you recommend any company in any particular?
Look, Therese, it does depend a little bit on what you're looking for. The company I've had the most success with and who I totally rate is called Origo. They are hosted in Australia and they work from the Philippines, and what I like about them is that they do caliper testing for every single one of their candidates, and they're very, very thorough, not only in their recruitment process, but they also have a really structured management and KPI approach to their team members. So even though they're direct report with you, they're actually also internally managed, and I haven't come across that in another organisation, not in the same way that Origo do it. If you'd like an introduction to their CEO, he's in Melbourne, please send me an email and I'm happy to do that. I guess when you're looking at hosted employment solutions, there are a few things to think about, and as I said, I've learned this the hard way, so please leverage my stuff up. Things to think about are, do they pre-test their candidates? That's really important. Do they train for culture in their organisation? The Filipino culture is closer to the Australian culture than any other of the APAC regions, I feel. But do they train the Filipino team to work with Australians? So that's really important. Will they help you manage your team member in their native environment? So do they have a management structure in place and a KPI structure in place that means that you not only provide your team member with a set of KPIs, but those KPIs are managed by the employment company? So they would be my top things to look out for. And the reason I push hosted employment as opposed to business process outsourcing is because I feel that for particularly the BAS agent and bookkeeping practices, BPO doesn't really work because it's very project-based. You do this here and this time. You have a supervisor who speaks to someone else, who speaks to someone else. I think in modern practice, we can't actually wait for a project to be completed, then find an error, then go back to a supervisor, then come back again. You do need that one-on-one, immediately fix the problem, have a relationship, talk through processing. I believe that is more relevant, particularly to BAS agents and bookkeepers who are very much more operational. I hope that made sense.
She does. Okay, the next question, how do you spell that company's name?
Oh, Origo. I have to write it down. Origo. And look, if you'd like an introduction to the CEO, he's in Australia, he's in Melbourne, his name is Scott. Please email me, kate@govreports.com.au, and I will simply send you an email introduction.
Okay, and the next questions that I've got from Kerry Carter. Can we get a copy of the worksheets we saw on the screen?
Yes, you absolutely can. I will work with Tiana on a way to have them emailed out to everybody if you would like.
Okay. I've got a question from Mark Hurden, and it's, do you use Gov reports for billing? Mark, I think these questions will possibly be better to be answered at the next webinar, which is at 6 o'clock by Ali Cochran. If you would kindly join us for that webinar, it's possibly be more appropriate, more appropriately answered.
Sure. I can help you there, Mark. So you can use Gov reports for billing. I don't personally. We use Practice Ignition. But it's certainly possible, and it ties really nicely into the office practice management, and it just depends on how you build and structure your business. So definitely jump online later for Ali's presentation.
Sure. Okay, that seems to be all the questions that we're getting for today. If anyone else has any other questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us offline or offline, outside of these sessions, or give us a call. Kate, hand over to you.
Fantastic, everybody. Thanks for staying with me. There was actually a lot of people on this call, and everybody stayed right to the end, which is fantastic. I really appreciate that. Yeah, Nicole, there is a lot to think about, and my advice to everybody is do the 1%, or do the one thing. There's a fantastic podcast I think I mentioned called The One Thing. It's really worth a listen if you're into that kind of thing. But just getting started on one thing out of everything you've heard today will actually build a bit of momentum for you. Please reach out. I'm always happy to have a chat to anyone in our profession, and enjoy Ali's presentation tonight at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
No worries. Yes, Lisa, I'll give you the slides too, I promise. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks.